Lisa.
Hey, Krista.
I am Krista Lockich, the Director of Communications and Community Relations for Lorain City Schools.
And I am Lisa Roberson, the Associate Director of Communications and Marketing for Lorain City Schools.
And we are your hosts of Titan Talk with Dr. Graham.
Yes, and you are listening to our second episode of Titan Talk. Thank you to everyone who tuned in for our first episode with Dr. Graham and our Executive Director of Safety and Security, Ruben Figueroa. I thought it was a really great talk on school safety.
It was, and it was very relevant, and I got lots of great feedback, and I heard you did too.
Yes, I did.
So, and this is, our second episode. We did do some notes, and we made a few adjustments. One of the things, do you want to talk about one of the things we're going to implement?
One of the things we will implement is called Ask Dr. Graham, and that will start each show. I have some feedback from a listener who thought it would be a great idea if they can submit questions directly to Dr. Graham so that he can answer them, and that they can have a way of having some two-way communication with our superintendent. Perfect feedback, and I said let's implement it immediately.
I love it, yeah. And we'll continue to make those pivots and changes as we continue to do this podcast and get better at it. So yeah, I love it. Let's talk to Dr. Graham. The first question comes from a student. It's anonymous. And the student wants to know, why do some schools or districts seem to have more money than others, and what can be done to make things fairer?
Okay, first part of the question is, why is there disparity between districts? And during my first school finance class, one of the first things the professor said was, in this class, you have to forget about math. And it has nothing to do with math. It has nothing to do with logic when it comes to school funding. It's all politics. So at one point, it all made sense. But because school funding impacts every district a little differently, depending on how powerful your senators and members of the House were in your area, things kind of got fluctuated. So there is clearly an imbalance. But the basics behind it is the fact that the state determined that it cost about $6,100 to educate a child. So put a number here. Okay, first of all, that's not an accurate number. The way they came up with it the first time was they figured out the budget for everything else. Whatever was left over, they divided that up by the number of children in Ohio, and they came up with a number that was around $6,000. It actually cost, I think the average in the state is about $15,000. So 2.5 times that number. So the state starts here with $6,100, but they also say that locally we're responsible for part of that ourselves. So they determine based on how much all the property in our school district is worth, not our school district buildings, but all the homes that reside in the zip codes that we serve. So they say, here's the $6,100, but you only get this much. So it costs this much to educate. And again, the state average is about $15,000. I think we're about $13,000. But if you want to check our exact numbers, please go on. It's called the CUP report, CUPP. It'll break down district spending in every category and compare us to similar districts and the state average. But I think we're a little over 13,000. So we actually get because it's here, so we actually get a portion of this much money. And that's what happens. That's the formula for most of the districts around the state. What they say, if you want to offset that, so to get from what they actually give us to what it costs, we have to put levies on the ballot and ask our taxpayers to pay more. And some districts have a much easier time than passing levies than others. Levies are typically designed to last about 5 or 6 years. We, because of a lot of things going our way, have stretched out 12 years. Some of those things are the COVID relief funds. It was a big chunk of money for us. It helped us out for a few years. The state budget changed. We got a little bump. Our enrollment's climbing up. So we've got some things that play into that, but that's the formula. And in terms of what can we do to make it fairer, there are a bunch of different ways to help certain districts. But the reality is when you help one, that money has to come from somewhere, so you hurt another. So there have been a bunch of different types of formulas for state funding. But as I mentioned, when you're doing this, it's difficult to understand because neither logic nor math apply. Mm-hmm. So by the time a lot of our folks in office understand it, they're term limited out to have to go somewhere else. Wow. So that's one of the difficulties with school funding. So the reality is this is our problem. Whatever our reality is in Lorain, every school district has that same problem. We're focused on how we can make things better here in the city of Lorain.
You mentioned having a levy. We have issue 21 on the ballot in November.
That's correct.
That's a permanent improvement levy.
Yep.
talk a little bit about what that means.
Permanent improvement levy are things that have a shelf life of more than 5 years, so we could purchase those things. For us, our immediate needs are building facilities. Our buildings are now, well, the oldest one is over 20 years old, and throughout the course of any building, things start to go. They get old, they start to break down. Our HVAC, which is our heating, venting, and air conditioning units, are starting to go. Roofs have been leaking. We had some grant monies to offset that those COVID funds helped us out with that. Our safety and security pieces, again, those things are 20 years old. We need to make sure that our buildings are safe, our children are safe. We have windows that go bad. I mean, everything in your house at some point needs to be replaced and updated, and that's where we are. We have cracks in our walls. So these are things that need to be addressed, and the main purpose of these funds is to address those needs.
And that, again, is issue 21. It's our permanent improvement levy for Lorain City Schools on the ballot this November. And that leads into the next question.
No, it's perfect. So we're talking about issue 21, and we will want our community members to support this. And so this is a question from a community member. They would like to know, how does Lorain City Schools ensure that taxpayer dollars are spent wisely and that the community sees a return on this investment?
We have lots of checks and balances internally as well as externally. So, for example, if a teacher wants to spend something for their class, there's already a budget set aside. They sign off on it. Their principal reviews it to make sure it's an appropriate expenditure and that the money's in the budget. Then it goes to central office and someone else does the same thing. And eventually I sign off on it and the treasurer signs off. Externally, we get audited on a regular basis. They're constantly coming in to check our books to make sure everything is consistent with what it should be. And what I mean by that is schools are different than private organizations. Private organizations can do anything that the law doesn't prohibit them from doing. Schools can only do what the law specifically says we can do. So very, very detailed in terms of every number they look at. So legally, okay, now in terms of properly that it's spent in a way that is consistent with what our community expects, is we listen, we engage, and then we try to respond in a way that's appropriate. And I can give dozens of examples. Dance. The goal is to bring back, our community said loud and clear, bring back the arts. We want visual, we want performing, we want vocal, we want musical, and they also said, and again, our students and our families said, we also want dance. So we provide the arts for every student, pre-K to 12. Actually, we just received a grant for $278,000 to improve the arts in preschool. So again, there's a heavy investment that we're also knocking on doors to get other folks to help us pay for that, to offset the cost and be respectful to our taxpayers. But for us, our goal is to continue to work hard to earn the trust of our community. If they say this is what we expect from you, I think we have an obligation to do our best, if it's an appropriate ask. What I mean by appropriate is aligned with what we consider to be, or experts consider, research supports being an appropriate and expenditure toward educating a child.
Okay, so we got this security grant for safety and security that, Sherrod Brown was in the news talking about, and we've shared with the community that we received $500,000, and how the community has asked questions on Facebook, and I've even had a couple questions. Well, how are you going to spend that? And obviously we haven't even received it yet. We just found out that we won the grant. So how is that determined?
Actually, that money's already spent in terms of where we're put toward. When we had, for lack of a better phrase, a safety audit done. And again, looking at the age of our equipment and what's going on. Again, we had some analog cameras that don't really work that well anymore. So we're replacing all those. The cost of doing what we need to do is $3.2 million. Mm-hmm. The grant that we received was for $500,000. And the district was required to put in, it was just less than $300,000, but I don't know the exact number off the top of my head in terms of matching funds. But we also used ESSER funds for another million or so of that. So we're still, even with this, still over $1 million off of what we need to do to make sure we keep our kids safe.
Wow.
And we can't sacrifice that. So if we can't come up with that money other ways, we'll have to eliminate stuff to make sure that because again, safety is first and foremost.
When you're talking about school finance, as well as going out to the public and other places to find resources like our Arts Council grant and COPS grant, there's a lot of prior work that goes into this, and we're very meticulous about telling them exactly what we need and how we want to use it. Do all grant cycles do that when we apply for grants?
And I actually appreciate the way you phrased the question, because there are a lot of grants out there, and people often say, Jeff, here's a grant, go get it. But the grant has expectations. And as a district, we have a strategic plan which is based on our expectations. And we're going this way with a very narrow focus. We're not going to jump at things that are over here that distract from the work that we're doing because somebody's going to give us $10,000. So we make sure that we identify what we're looking for because it aligns with what our community deserves and is consistent with our plan, and that's what we go after aggressively. But we don't get distracted by a few dollars here and there because it's free money if it doesn't do what we need it to do.
Excellent. That answers all my questions.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Dr. Graham.
It's a complicated the way schools are funded, but he answered it in a way that I understood. Thank you, Dr. Graham. Thanks for coming.
No, appreciate the invitation again.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right.
And I'm so glad you talked about dance and how our community asked for it, and that's what they deserve because we have a guest coming up that's going to tell us all about our exciting
Yeah, I'm
dance
sorry I missed
programs.
that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Dr. Graham mentioned dance when he was talking about giving the community what they want and the things that they asked for. Dance pre-K through 12 was one of them, and that's something that we have been able to do. We're really excited about that. So today our guests are...
We have Alaysia and Hayley. They're students from Lorain High School who are in our Dance 2 program and also in our Titans Dance Company, which is a dance club we have here at the high school. And we have Mrs. Elizabeth Hany, who is the dance teacher. Let's get started a little bit. Elizabeth, I'm going to give you the first question. So tell us a little about yourself and where did you get your passion for dance?
That's a loaded question. So my passion for dance, it started pretty late for what most people consider a dance career. So I started at the tail end of middle school, the cusp of entering high school. I had been sitting in a car with my mom having a conversation about life and what was going on. My sister had just started going on college visits, and I just turned to her and I said the only way that I am going to college or that I could see myself in a career was with dance, and I had just started taking dance classes a year prior. So
You got the bug.
Yeah, I got the bug. I've never felt more myself than when I am immersed in dance and the dance world and everything kind of around it. So just followed it.
I'm still processing middle school was late because when
Yes.
you were like, I just got started late, I'm like, what age is she going to say? And then you said middle school, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's, for most people, a really early time in your life to know what you want to do with the rest of your life.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So.
Definitely a strange anomaly to be like, this is what I'm doing, and then actually follow through with it all the way to now.
So I bet you're thinking about a middle school Elizabeth when you're in the classroom. So how do you bring that to the classroom? Does middle school Elizabeth come to the classroom?
Ooh, I think middle school Elizabeth comes to the classroom. Middle school, high school Elizabeth was very quiet, very reserved.
But she loved to dance.
Loved to dance. Loved to dance. Loved to think about all of her subjects through, well, if I was in this era, what type of dance would I be doing through this protest or this rally or, math classes, I would imagine, instead of, algebra and the equation in front of me, it was actual bodies kind of moving around. So I try to almost put that out there when I'm teaching, just open up to, I'm going to give you these ideas, I'm going to give you these concepts of what dances can be, and then kind of let you experience it through your lens. So that's what I try to give my students, is they get to speak and find their voices within what I'm presenting forward.
So that's perfect because I want to find out what Alaysia and Hayley think about the same question. Like, what got you interested in dance? What made you pursue this class that's offered?
Well, from kindergarten to 7th grade, I danced for 8 years, and I always loved dance. It's always been one of my passions, and I recently found it with Miss Hany.
Nice.
Yeah, she convinced me to join the dance company.
It was a hard sell.
It was great, though. Yeah, and I love dance. And my dance teacher, Ms. Alaysia, Yeah, she was my dance teacher.
So you had some good mentors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what about you, Hayley?
It was when Mr. Amelia was here.
Yeah.
But
Last year, yeah.
last year.
And what's something that, when you go to dance class, the life of a high schooler, believe me, I remember, a range of emotions throughout the day, a range of moods throughout the day, and then you get to dance class, and what's that like?
It's basically just how you explained it. Like, you can go through a stressful day and then go to dance class and then, like, express yourself, not with words, but, like, with body expressions, I guess.
Yeah, and afterward you kind of feel that relief of like, oh, I let it go.
Absolutely.
But Miss Haney's great, too.
Yeah. It's not just the dance, it's the teacher too. Yeah. I can see that. How is dance class different than your other subjects or your other classes on your schedule?
It's not stressful at all. Yeah, it's not stressful at all. When you go to dance class, you have the stress of everything else on your back, and you just step on the dance floor and everything you let go of all of it.
Tell me a little bit about Titans Dance Company. What do you guys do for the after-school program?
Well, we dance, and we dance, and we create dances. A lot of Ms. Haney's moves, but we also incorporate some of our own and flow off of each other. So choreography and ballet, other dance styles.
And so I understand that you guys are preparing for a really, really big performance coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about Cleveland Dance Fest?
Well, I know it's November 24th. Yep. And it's going to be a long day, but it's going to be an exciting day and a completely new experience for a lot of us.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little about?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So they went through an adjudication process, which was I tried to eliminate some stress during it, but was really an intense process. So we had about 10 days to film some choreography. So I threw a bunch of movement at them, filmed it sort of like a highlight reel, sent it in, and it was judged by a panel of professional dancers that included professors, included companies, included freelance dancers, as well as the director of the fest itself. And they approved it, accepted it, and we're moving forward. So the day itself consists of 3 master classes from professionals who are performing in their professional festival the 3 days prior.
Yeah.
This is international and national professionals in
Wow.
dance who are performing, and then they get to learn from them in a comfortable setting amongst their peers. And then they go through a professional tech. They get to kind of see what the lighting process is like, what the sound process is like, because that is a part of the industry. And then they get to be on stage and performing in front of all of those professionals, as well as community members, as well as any parents, cousins, family members, community members here who would like to come, teachers, everyone. So it's a really, really big deal. Really big deal, and
So-
I'm just so impressed by them.
That's incredible. And this
Yeah.
is like a part of like I want to speak to the community and say, you asked us to bring the arts, and we brought the arts pre-K to 12. But and this is why this is the benefit, is that you just spoke about how it's your one class where there's no stress and it's fun and it's emotionally healthy. At the same time, describing something that sounds very challenging, and that it's the stress of just living up to the challenge and getting yourself ready and being emotionally and physically completely ready for this, yet you find it enjoyable, right? So these are healthy things. That's personal growth.
It's it's a mood builder. It's a community in and of itself.
It's a sport.
It's a space. It's a sport.
Yep.
It's an art. It's a language. It breaks down barriers.
What about this modern dance person who's coming, who is a huge celebrity in modern dance?
Yes.
You seem to be fangirling out.
I am. I am.
have
I'm
you-
fangirling.
Do you know who Lloyd Knight is? Have you done some research?
I've seen pictures.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know his name. But from what I've seen, he's a beautiful dancer.
Yeah.
When you read his bio and you see that he's danced with the likes of Misty Copeland.
Oh,
He's been on
my
stage
gosh.
with someone who is at the top of their game,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's at the top of his game, and then he's coming back to our district to be able to teach our students.
Yeah.
So that they are getting some experiences that dancers at the college level would die for.
Yeah.
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 How were you able to get him to come to Lorain High School?
So we have a working relationship with Dance Cleveland.
Okay.
And Dance Cleveland does a lot of beautiful outreach programming, educational programming. And they were able to get a grant that brought him to create his own piece that he is setting on a stage in Cleveland in February.
Wow.
But he's coming early so that he can kind of scope it out, get a feel for it, see what his vision really wants to be. And while he was there, he opened it up to, do you know of
That's
any
fabulous.
area, any things? And they reached out to us. And
Of course, because
I-
Lorain City
right.
Schools has the only comprehensive dance program
Yes.
in the state.
Yes. Yeah. We're number one and we're the only one.
That's so-
yeah. So it was a huge opportunity, and I said yes before I knew if I could say yes, and we were just gonna make it work no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that we're all so excited and just comfortable bragging about it, because it is highly braggable and we
Yes.
deserve it as a
Yes.
district, and you
Yeah.
deserve it as students. What can the community do to help you?
To support our dance program
Yeah.
and our dancers.
Show up. And it's not just the dancers in the dance department. We wouldn't be here if Lorain City Schools didn't have an amazing, really well-rounded arts program across the board, and we just show up to the plays, show up to the art galleries, show up to the halftime shows and cheer on the band, show up to the choir performances and the band performances, show up to all of it. Show up to the arts programming. We want to see your faces. We want to know where you see being able to help and support us, so that we can start having real meaningful conversations about how can this art programming as a whole, dance of course, help the community. We can give back and we can take, and we can really work and make this a much bigger experience for the whole community.
Wow, I'm really taken aback by how passionate Miss Hany, our dance teacher, is, and how much the students that came here today, Alaysia and Hayley, love that class and love that teacher, and I can just see the relationship that she's building with her students.
growing, yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's
And I
amazing.
really loved how Alaysia and Hayley, they were our first students on the podcast, and they did a wonderful job.
First
kind
of
of
many, I hope.
Bringing us into their day, letting us know how dance helps them in so many ways, and how it helps them with stage fright and speaking publicly, as well as giving them a place where they can express themselves and relieve their stress for the day. Everyone needs that.
Yeah, everybody needs that. And, the fact that we are the only school offering a comprehensive dance program, and then getting to sit here and listen to this really passionate, amazing teacher and two of her students talk about how, giving real examples of how it is developing the whole person is incredible, because we know how hard the district worked to bring the arts back pre-K through 12, but to see it flourishing in their faces and voices and stories was great.
Yes, and to know that the community is supporting this program, and we have opportunities for our students that are high caliber and are allowing them to mix and mingle with professionals in the field that they have so much passion about and be on the same stage and have all of these opportunities, and even for them to come to our classroom. It's going to be an amazing thing to witness in the next few weeks as we follow this dance program, as we follow the trajectory of how they're going to create their dance that they're going to be showcasing at the Cleveland Dance Fest.
So now that you brought that up, I have to plug a new project, okay? So the podcast feels like a new project, but that's really an old project because we've already moved on to a new project.
That's how this works.
And we are going to have a docuseries that our department, which is Michael Pasciati and you and I and Waleska, are going to create a docuseries that will air fall and spring called Lorain Legends in the Making. The fall series will track our dance students preparing for their big dance showcase.
Oh, this is going to be wonderful. So as Ms.
Yeah.
Hany was talking about the piece that students had to put together to be judged to be able to be in this festival, we will see all of behind the scenes of how that goes together. So
You'll meet the students more than just Hayley and Alaysia that were here. You'll meet a lot more of our students. And it's coming soon. And then the spring series, the spring docuseries, will follow our robotics team. And that's interesting because who's coming next week?
next week we will have Denise Varney, who will be come to talk to us about STEAM. You know, STEAM is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. They always like to put that A in there because it's no longer just STEM, it's STEAM.
Yeah.
And she will be here to talk about Project Lead the Way and our computer science and technology pathways. So it'll be great to have her here.
Yeah, and she's also going to bring a student with her. So I love talking to our staff. They're so passionate. But I mean, if you really want to hear the stories of how these programs impact our district, it's hearing it from the students.
You have to hear from our students.
Yeah. So this has been great. Episode 2 in the books. I'm really excited. I enjoy doing this with you guys.
So, yes. And I want to tell everyone to remember to listen to wherever you find your podcast, as well as remember to send us your questions so that we can have more questions to ask Dr.
Yeah.
Graham, because that's an important part of
He
our
loves
podcast.
it. He
Yes.
loves getting the questions and finding out what do people want to know and what are they unsure about and how can he answer. He always wants to be of help. So, yeah. All right. Goodbye.
Goodbye.